from the All Indiana Podcast Network.
It's time for real conversation about the real issues that affect our communities.
Poverty, education, equality, and more.
This is Real Talk.
Real Talk with Reverend Charles Harrison.
Welcome to Real Talk on the All Indiana Podcast Network. I am Reverend Charles Harrison, and on our episode today, we will be interviewing Gregg Doyel, Indianapolis columnist, who did an article this week on the work of the Indianapolis TenPoint Coalition in one of the hotspot areas of the city. Welcome to Real Talk on the All Indiana Podcast, and I am Reverend Charles Harrison, and thank you so much for joining me again today on Real Talk. I'm doing solo today. My co-host, Reverend Terry Webster Sr., is not with me today, but I have a special guest with me today, Gregg Doyel, columnist for the Indianapolis Star, who's kind of been hanging out with Indy TenPoint, for the last several weeks, and I think we have recruited him and adopted him now as a part of the Indianapolis TenPoint team. But he wrote a very, I thought, in-depth, fascinating article for those who are curious and wonder what Indy TenPoint does on the street in our whole quest to try to help reduce the level of urban youth violence as it impacts young men of color between the ages of 12 and 24 years old. In 2024, we're going to reduce that from 10 to 24 because they're starting to get younger and younger that gangs and cliques are recruiting. So welcome, Gregg.
Reverend, thank you. And you make me sound almost like the mascot, and I'm okay being the mascot. I'm the TenPoint Coalition mascot.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And I really wanted to have a conversation with you today because I was curious as you were walking with the group of OGs that focus on 29th and MLK, which is one of 8 areas that we patrol, but certainly it is as hot and dangerous as any of the other areas that we're in. For years, that area has been one of the hottest in the city, and there have been times where it's been one of the hottest in the nation. Where it ranks. Yeah, where it ranks. Yeah.
You didn't tell me that. Like last night, I was walking some streets by myself. And okay. I'm just wondering, should I be doing this? Is this smart? And I didn't, nowhere did I know. Reverend Harrison didn't tell me. This is one of the hottest spots in the country. I'd have walked myself right back to that corner BP and the lights. But no, anyway.
Yeah, but it's better,
Yeah.
We just had a double homicide on that corner, over a week ago, which as I was talking to IMPD and community leaders, it's better than what it has been. I mean, it's almost been a year and a half since we have actually had a murder on that corner within a 2-block radius. We did have earlier this year a self-defense homicide where an ex-boyfriend and the new boyfriend get into it over a young lady that led to a self-defense homicide. But we normally in the past average 9 or 10 homicides just in that area.
Oh, per year?
Yeah, per year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, per year. It is ground zero. So we have seen a lot of progress, but for us as TenPoint, one death, is just hard for us when we work so hard. But kind of talk about what kind of led you to ended up coming out with us and the article that you wrote and then your observations.
Do you remember what led me out here? Do you remember the moment that kind of started it? You were there.
I was. I think it was at the 250 club. Yes.
And I was putting my foot in my mouth basically and saying, boy, it must be dangerous out there. Are you ever scared? And you said, why don't you come out with me and walk one night?
Yeah.
And I mean, if you hadn't said that, I never, all it takes is an invitation to get anybody going.
Right.
So I finally made my way out there and, I walk my dog every day in parks. And parks are living organisms. I mean, the nature parks. I mean, every day you go, there's something different. A tree has fallen or It's different. The whole thing is alive. And that corner is alive. It's a living organism in its own way, and you never know what it's going to look like the next day. So I went a couple nights ago, and there is this enormous tent in an abandoned lot behind the BP gas station there. And that tent had been somewhere else down the street, and it got moved, and so it was... And there must have been 10 or 12 people living in that tent. And then one night, it was just gone. And apparently there had been a fight, and the cops took the tent down. And 6 or 8 of the people that had been living there are now standing. It's really, it's awfully sad. They're standing there basically in the same spot where the tent was, just standing there. I don't know what they do all day. So it's a living organism that you just never know how it's going to be different. And it's, fascinating is the wrong word because it's tragic, but it is, I always have to make my rounds and just see what's different today, because in the forest, a tree's fallen, and my dog and I notice things are different, but I go out there to the corner, and it's just, things are different, and people have changed just overnight.
Well, that is true. It is true. The tent used to be across the street at one of the abandoned homes, and it ended up being moved because it became a gathering place for individuals gathering there, and sometimes they would drink, and drinking would lead to problems, and sometimes the drug dealers would intermingle in there, and they would sell drugs, and we have had problems because of that. So, yeah, but it is the life of what we call the hood.
You mentioned a couple of abandoned houses down the street, and the street is so interesting, at least they're all interesting, but the one that I'm thinking about, I believe, is 29th. And you walk past some houses and they're abandoned, and the foundation is crumbling, and it literally looks like the house is going to, tilt down. But the house right next to it is well lit, has beautiful grass, and almost a brand new 3-foot tall, thick wooden fence. And the house next to that is a duplex that has bars on the wall, on the windows. But across the street is a beautiful house with a bright orange, freshly painted door. So you see, I've not been there long enough to know, are the danger spots choking out the spots of hope, or are there spots of hope coming that eventually might move out the danger spots? And I don't know what the answer to that is, but it's you see people are trying. People are trying.
Well, I've been in the neighborhood as a pastor for 30 years. It has been a gradual decline in the neighborhood. So along MLK, used to be a lot of businesses. Right across the street from the BP was the 88 grocery store. Then on the other side of that used to be on the corner of 38th and MLK used to be a beauty salon. Then there was a Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. When I first came 30 years ago.
There's no sign of that.
There's no sign of that. Then there was a fish place right beside that, and all of that has been torn down.
So it was alive in a different way back then, and now it's just, and there's a bank there. It's still standing there. And I don't know why it's still standing there, because now it's a place where grass is growing over the walls and graffiti's everywhere. And it's just, you see signs of people that just don't care. But the thing about, you've asked, what is it like to be walking with the guys and just to be standing there really sometimes and seeing what's happening. And unless you're there to see it, you just really can't, it's hard to imagine that folks are grateful, even folks that are in the game, as you say, are grateful that folks like Mario and Stephanie are standing there caring. It's just, people just, they'd like to know. I think that's the step one, is people want to know, does it even matter anymore? Does anybody care about us, this neighborhood, this whatever? And when they see a few people, your folks, standing around, walking around, interacting, and everybody knows Mario and Stephanie. It's amazing. It is amazing. Everybody knows them. And I know that's a glimmer of hope for folks, even folks that, outsiders might say, well, you're part of the problem. Maybe so, but they're getting brought back closer to the middle, I hope, by Mario and Stephanie and folks like that.
Well, I think it is. I do think we provide some glimmer of hope for people in a lot of different ways, not just our presence making the residents feel safer, but I think trying to address a lot of the other issues, because they know that TenPoint is also connected to many of the churches in the neighborhood. So the churches provide a lot of services for the community. And we are also the sounding board, the sounding board for the residents that express their concerns, their frustrations about the condition of the community, what's going on in their lives, and we certainly hear a lot of hopelessness from people who don't have much hope at the time, and we try to, as much as possible, give them a glimpse of hope again.
In the story that I wrote, the best quote that I didn't use, and I read the story in print and realized, oh man, I didn't get that in there. Mario had said, it's our job to come out here and take the temperature. Something like, our job is to come out here. Our role is to take the temperature,
right,
and to know when it's getting hot out here. And that didn't get in there. But Mario and Stephanie, again, they're the two that I know.
Right.
They don't just stand around. They interact with people and they find out. And so now I'm trying to, and I'm making my own inroads. There's a sandwich shop parked there, like a food truck parked there. And so I'm getting to know the people that work inside there. I'm getting to know a few folks. And I'm asking them, is it hot tonight? Is it cool tonight? What's the temperature? What are you hearing? And people will tell you.
Right,
as I say, it's a living organism.
Right, they will.
It's not a concrete, it is concrete, but it's alive. And people will say, yeah, tonight it's quiet tonight, or yeah, tonight there's something in the air. Mario said you can feel it when it's hot in the air. And that hadn't happened yet on a night that I've been there with Mario. But he says when something's coming up, you can feel it. It's almost like humidity. You just feel it.
You do. And that's one of the fascinating things that when I started walking on a regular basis, I started feeling and sensing that I did not know as the pastor of the church just right around the corner. I was, driving into the church and doing church things.
But you see people at their best, and they're trying to not show off, not even impress you, but they want to show you that they're being respectful to you at your church. So you see the best of the neighborhood.
I see the best of the neighborhood.
Right.
I do. I see the best of the neighborhood when they come in. Every now and then, I may, see someone that may slip
right.
and not show their best. But mostly I see the best. I see the best until I drive off the parking lot and I'm driving home. Then I start seeing other things, in the neighborhood. And that's what I think what really, Greg, caused me to want to get involved is going home at night and turning on the news in the evening or turning it on in the morning and seeing what was happening in the neighborhood where I pastor.
I don't want to come here and sit here and just compliment you, but what you're saying, I really don't, and I'm going to insult you soon enough.
Right.
But,
Okay.
but one thing what you're describing in yourself and in people like Mario and Stephanie and all the folks that work for you is there's millions of kinds of people in this world, but as far as what I'm talking about here, there's two kinds of people in this world. There are people that look around and notice what's happening,
right,
and there's people that just kind of think about what's happening in their life. What am I doing? And they kind of have blinders on, and they don't even know they have blinders on. Blinders on people don't know they have blinders on.
Right.
But the folks that actually are looking around, it's hard to look around. And I hadn't really been looking around.
Right.
I don't live near that neighborhood. Why would I pull off I-65 and just go to that gas station? I just don't. So until you look around and see what's out there, but that's what you do.
Right.
And that's why it wasn't enough for you to be a minister. You actually looked around and thought, well, this isn't good enough. You were safe in your oasis in your church,
right.
And you thought, that's not good enough. And the world needs a lot more of those rather than the blinders on folks.
What would you say and describe for people who are not aware of the world out there that not just TenPoint, but other groups like TenPoint are out there trying to make a difference when it comes to trying to help reduce violence in the city? And, to be honest, the last 8.5 years or longer hadn't been very good for the city. Particularly the last 4 years, we have exceeded 200 plus homicides. And a lot of people may say, man, what you're doing out there is really not making a difference because the numbers are still high.
Well, okay, but you can't prove a negative, and what you can't know is that without your presence, the other groups, and you're right, there's a lot of groups.
Right.
Without that presence, we just don't know what it would look like.
Right.
We don't know. Yeah, I'm a big believer in you have to believe when you're doing things for the right reason with the right heart, and you see, and you saw. I could talk forever, but you saw so many. As I wrote in the story, small moments.
Right.
You saw so many small moments where, no, you didn't actually stop a gunfight.
Right.
You didn't do that night.
Right.
But you saw at least two different people came up to you and said, I was in the mood to get in trouble tonight.
Right.
And I saw you standing there in the corner, Reverend,
right,
and thought, not tonight, I'm not going to get in trouble.
Right.
I mean, we'll never know what that means.
Right.
So I do see a difference. And I've now forgotten what the question was because I had more to say. Do you remember the question?
Well, yeah, the question is describe for describe for the audience and people in Indianapolis what you observed out there in the world and kind of the work that's being done.
Well, I write for the newspaper, so I read the newspaper and I watch the news, and it's one thing to read the stories and see the facts and see the stats and all that, and you read that and your heart can hurt. But then you put the newspaper down, you turn the radio off, and you go have your dinner and you walk your dog, and that's what you do. It's a whole other thing to actually be out there, and I don't want to paint myself like I'm some noble hero. I mean, I've been out there, I'm not like you guys, but 20 years.
Right.
But it doesn't take much. You don't have to be out there for long to see that these aren't statistics in the paper. These are human beings, and you see the kind of people that one day will be a statistic in the paper.
Right.
But right now, they're walking towards me with some clear issues, and all they want is someone to kind of notice them, smile at them, maybe give them $1, or maybe go inside the BP and buy them a Monster Energy drink or something. They're human beings, and I think that's what gets lost, and it's easy for all of us to lose it, including me, until you actually see what's out there, really see it and feel it. It's a whole another ballgame, and so to be out, it's eye-opening. And as I think I put this on Twitter a few times when I was promoting the story, which is what I do, is I wrote, I walked with the 10-point coalition and I'll never be the same. Because it's really, it's hard to be the same after you actually see, because it's a TV show,
right?
Only it's real.
Right.
And that's people like me, and I'm on video, people look like me, let's call it what it is. I don't see that world. And to see it is, and not just see it on Netflix, is whoa, and it matters, and you can help a little bit, and if you can help a little bit, that's more than helping zero.
Were you surprised by what you saw?
Yeah, I was surprised by a couple things. I was surprised by the depth, the amount of folks that were having issues. I mean, I saw in just a couple hours, I saw several people with obviously mental health issues.
Right.
Obviously, and I was surprised at the number of people that recognized you and walk, and that, because we don't get that sort of interaction. We get interaction, but the night you're there,
right,
you don't know what it's like when you're not there, because you're not there to see it. It's different. People see you and they recognize you whether they know you're not, and they want to come and talk to you.
Right. And
I wonder what would have happened that night had those two men that said, "I don't have a taste for anything tonight, Reverend," and the other guy said, "I was going to do something bad, but I saw the Reverend," and I said, "I'm not tonight." Well, again, you can't prove a negative. We'll never know what those guys would have done that night had they not seen you. So, I don't even remember. I'm apparently terrible at remembering the question, but I just see what I see is people that are looking for a reason to believe, and they walk by folks standing on the corner, and not all of them appreciate it, but most of them appreciate it, and it's empowering to know that, wow, it doesn't take much to make a small difference on one night.
Was your experience there different from what you probably had heard about what may be going on in these hotspot areas, where we're seeing a lot of violence and what people may be thinking that have, may have never been in the 29th and MLK area, certainly have never walked in the area. They may have driven by, but was it anything different from maybe some self-perceived ideas you may have had before you came out and walked with us?
Yeah, two things were different. Okay. One is I mentioned that I've seen, this sounds so awful and stupid, but I've seen The Wire, okay? I've seen it.
Yes.
And you kind of, when you someone like me who, I was, it's amazing how we're all just born where and to whom we're born.
Right.
Like there's no reason you were born Charles Harrison and I wasn't.
Right.
There's just no reason.
Right.
There's just no, but I was born where I was born, and so I didn't, I've got to turn on The Wire to see what I saw the other night or what I've been seeing. So I expected actually hot spots. I expected to see, okay, I'm going to see some Wire stuff. And you don't see that. It's not a video game. It's not a TV show. It's more hidden.
Right.
It's, and because it's hidden, I don't see it, a lot of it, which is why you have to believe that when you're walking up and down these streets, there are people watching,
right? And
whether they're staying inside and behaving themselves for the moment, or maybe for the night because they feel like, you know what, I'm gonna call it off tonight. I don't know. We'll never know. Again, you can't prove a negative. So it's in a way quieter than I thought, but you also can feel the seething underneath. You just know there's something. There's people we're not seeing. But the other thing, So that's a little bit encouraging that it's not nearly as wild, wild west as I thought, although all it takes is one bad moment for it to become the Wild West. But the other thing is that you drive by, like this corner you're talking about, 29th and MLK. I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of people drive by that within sight of it every day on 65.
Right.
If you just look off to the road, you can see it just south of 65. You see it. And I've been there hundreds of times. And until you go down these streets, just a block, and you see that every third house is empty.
Right.
And not just empty like maybe in TV shows. Yeah, there's a house that's empty. No, empty and falling apart, and bars on the window, and things attached to the, graffiti painted, and you can just tell there might be, I say empty, not sure these places are empty. They're just not what we think of as a occupied home. So it's staggering how prevalent the desolation is right under our nose that you might not see it until you get out of your car and look.
This is Real Talk with Reverend Charles Harrison, and my guest today is Gregg Doyel, columnist for the Indianapolis Star, who wrote a piece the other day on kind of the world that the TenPoint OGs work in trying to reduce violence. One of the things I think you did not see, and probably is more prevalent when the weather's warmer, is the younger people who tend to be out with the guns, once you learn how to observe things, more visible in their pockets with the magazines. We do see a lot of that. You see a lot more people out and about when the weather is warmer compared to when the weather is cold. And some of the things that we try to pay attention to, just, across the street where the liquor store is, and the Baba's, the food place, is the gathering, sometimes in cars as they stand around selling the drugs. That's normally when something bad can happen. Used to be very prevalent at the BP gas station until we started working with the management there to have a presence there. That's why we spend a lot of time there, so it won't come back. It won't be as prevalent where they're selling drugs as they pull up to the gas pumps pretending to buy gas, or standing somewhere on the lot selling drugs. And if there's a bad drug deal or a robbery that's about to occur, then that's when it will hit the news where there was a shooting and someone was shot or injured or shot or killed.
I've been outside the BP and been offered, I assume, to buy drugs. I don't think anybody was going to give it to me. A guy walked by the other day and asked me if I wanted to, I think he said orange. You want something? He said three or four words. I just don't remember, but one of them was orange.
Yes.
And I don't know what that is, but I figure that's not good.
Yeah.
I've heard from Mario that because it's been cooler and colder and there's been some rain, that it has been calmer than normal, and that makes sense. Everybody, including gangbangers, I mean, we all want to be comfortable, and
right.
if it's 25 degrees and sleeting outside, you can find another day to do whatever you're going to do, whether it's playing catch with your dad or selling drugs, whatever it is you're doing. I'm so naive in so many ways, and I'm not trying to learn. I guess I am learning a little bit, but I'm so naive. I walk over there to that Baba's and that liquor store and walk around just the parking lot, just kind of walk around with Mario and Stephanie too. But when I'm there alone, especially, I notice a bunch of eyes on me.
Yes.
And I don't know if they're just looking at me because I'm different, or if it's occurred to me, I wonder if they think I'm a cop. Yes.
Because you are not a part of the neighborhood, so they don't know you yet. So for them, you may be an undercover police officer.
And I don't know if that's a good thing, that if they see what they think is undercover police officer, maybe they will pick up and go somewhere else, or if that's a bad thing if I have a target on my head. I don't know. But I've told Mario before that, and it's really kind of strange, and it's easy to say what I'm about to say when you don't have a gun in your face. But I don't get afraid. I don't feel fear of the unknown. Now, I might damn well feel fear of if I see something, if someone has a gun in my face, I'll know what fear is. Yeah. But I don't fear something that hadn't happened yet. So I might be my own worst enemy, just walking around like I'm all big and bad until I realize, I'm not so big and bad at all, because there's a 9 in my face. But anyway, I see the folks congregating, but not nearly as much. And I guess what you're saying is this is a good almost entry to being with the OGs because it's going to get hotter.
Yeah, I think the more you are there, then people tend to know who you are, and well, he's a part of TenPoint. Then they get to know you. Well, that's Gregg, with TenPoint, and that's how it was with us when we were first on the corner. Except for, and one of the reasons why we use people like Mario, and you haven't met Anthony and Durrell. They come out at different times.
Okay.
And different days, they're from the neighborhood. So it's helpful when they're from the neighborhood and people already tend to know them because they kind of grew up in the neighborhood, which makes it safer, for the TenPoint people being already known in the neighborhood, like Reverend Harrison, so that people know who you are.
Yeah, and I keep saying as I wrote because it feels like I'm quoting my story, and it's always bothered me. I want to acknowledge as I wrote, but as I wrote that they recognize Mario and Stephanie and folks like that because they actually come from. They're not people like me parachuting in from. Right. I'm a little bit on the north side, 79th and Ditch. They're not people like me. They're folks that Mario spent a lot of his childhood just down the street. He told me on Eugene, just down the street, and so he knows people, and that goes both ways, and I'm sure it helps keep it safer, but it opens up Mario for more hurt.
Yes.
Because last week when there's a double homicide, he knew there was a young man and a woman. He knew the young man, knew the mom well because the mom grew up like Mario did down the street.
Right.
And he knew her well. He also knew, and he told me, I couldn't believe this. He told me that mom has 2 boys and has now lost them both.
Yes.
To street violence.
Yes.
And so in Mario's case and Stephanie too, these aren't just folks that you see and you kind of hope you can help and you get in your car and you drive 3 miles away. No, these are folks that they grew up knowing and they're hurting.
Yes.
And that's a whole different level of pain when you actually know these folks.
I think that's why it's so hurtful for us is that we tend to know either the parents, the grandparents, maybe aunts and uncles or cousins. We tend to know someone in the family of the victims. And then when we go to the scene that night and the body is out there, on the street or in the car, we're trying to console people who are broken and hurting. And just like that mother who's now lost both sons.
And Mario said there was another shooting, and I don't know when it was, had to be in the last year, maybe more recently than that, where he was there when they pulled the sheet over a young man. Mm-hmm. And he called him a kid, and Mario's about my age, so, I say kid, I mean a 25-year-old. Like I say that, the kid linebacker, the kids for IU basketball, I call them all kids. So I don't know how young this kid was, but Mario said...
In his 20s. He was in his 20s.
His 20s.
It's about 2 blocks north of... No, 2 blocks. It would be 2 blocks east of that location, so right by 65.
Okay.
So that's, yeah.
And Mario was there when they pulled the sheet over that kid's head, he said. He goes, oh, man, I saw that kid yesterday.
Yes.
I mean, and obviously he saw him not lying on the ground with the sheet over his head. So it's just the finality of life. And I know in more hurting communities, the finality of life, and you see it more in certain areas than you do in, say, Carmel. Yeah. Carmel's not really going to see just, something like that very often. So it's a lesson nobody needs to be learning. And I wonder if that lesson actually, I'm sure it does. I'm sure the books have been written about this, that it gets easier and easier to almost contribute to the killing, whether you're doing it or just kind of part of the game that does it, because it's just, well, that's what happens. Some people live and some people don't. And in other neighborhoods, you don't think that way, but you do in these hot spots.
Yeah, because you're trying to keep the kids, and we call them kids. Yeah. We're trying to keep these young people alive, and the young man that Mario was talking about, they had just had a conversation with him. For the need not to be hanging out in the streets in the neighborhood. Oh. He gets killed 24 hours later. In another part of the neighborhood, he gets killed, and we're trying, literally, and what we say to people, we're trying to keep him alive. The young man who approached me that night and told me he was thinking about doing something bad, is a young man that we're trying to keep him alive, you know.
And it didn't take much on that night. All it took was seeing you.
Yes.
And maybe if he comes back and he starts to recognize Mario more, and I'm sure he does, maybe I'll hear him say that to Mario in a couple of days.
Yeah, I think for us, Greg, we really believe in the power of presence. Like the drug dealer on the corner selling drugs. Everybody knows who the drug dealer is, but he influences everything that happens on that corner. We believe, TenPoint, that our presence is a deterrent to violence, is a deterrent. Just our presence and people knowing us. What breaks our heart is that we can't be there 24/7.
Which brings me to the New York Times guy that was walking with you.
Yes.
And I wasn't there, but didn't someone tell the New York Times guy that we know when 10Point's here?
Yes.
And we just kind of wait until...
Yes.
Because you're right, you can't be there.
Yes.
You can't be there from sun down to sun up.
Yes. That's what they... And that was one of the things that we shared with IMPD the other day with the business community. They pretty much know our schedule. So they know when we're there, when we're not there. They know when the police are there, when they're not there. So they come out when we're not there. And we've tried to make the argument, how do we provide enough resources so that groups like TenPoint and others can be present during the hot times when we tend to have more police runs, shots fired, in these hotspot neighborhoods, so that we can keep more of these young people alive.
If only more people would come out and see it for themselves, or watch this podcast, or read that story or whatever, and think this is something I can do, because that's what you need also. Not only, resources, police and all that, but you have an army of 20 or so. I don't know why you can't have an army of 200. I don't know where people are. And I would say if you ever give me the chance to talk to someone who's on the fence, there's something about going out there and knowing, I think most of us, you want to get through this world thinking you're doing something to help somebody. Right. And so many things are, you don't know if it really helps, like recycling, for example. We recycle, a lot of us do, but you don't really know. Is it really helping? You don't know, because you can't see it. It goes somewhere else and you don't know. But being out there in the corner like y'all do, you can see it. You can see, even if it's only just for a moment, for 2 hours, for 3 hours, whatever, you see this is working, this is helping, and you can go to bed that night thinking, I'm not saving the world, but that must be a good feeling for you guys, for everybody to have. And I wish more people could feel that, because I think you'd have a bigger army if they knew how good it felt to actually care about somebody besides yourself.
So what is the reluctance? I invited you. What do you think we can do as an organization that would get other people who have some influence in some way in the city to see that world out there, and what kind of impact might it have on them, for all of us? Because we believe that it's going to take the whole city to reverse this, what we're seeing out there, because there's so many factors that's driving the violence. There's not one thing, neither is there one silver bullet to fix it, because it's so multi-layered, so complex, that's driving the violence. You talked about one of them, the whole issue of mental health, and we're talking with IU Health right now about how do we work together to provide resources for people to get help with mental health. When it's a stigma, particularly in the Black community, it's a big stigma where we don't talk about it a lot or won't acknowledge it, but it's real.
Until you asked me that question, how to maybe get people to realize they could go out there and help, I hadn't thought about this, but it all comes down to spreading the word. And I have to wonder and even believe that if you were able to get a commercial on a TV show and that shows you and some of your people walking around for 30 seconds, and actually, and I don't know if this sounds naive or not, but put a number on there and say, would you like to get involved? Call this number or visit this website. Because I don't know if people realize, I think what you do, it's very easy. I talked about how it's easy to not see the world around you if you don't really want to. You got blinders on. I think it's very easy for people to read about TenPoint or hear about TenPoint and the other organizations that do it and just think to themselves, that's nice. I'm glad somebody's doing that. And to not realize they need the only reason people are out there doing that is because someone like you heard about them and went out there and joined them. So y'all need joiners.
Right.
And I don't know if it doesn't occur to people that, they might need more help.
Right.
Like, they're good. 10-point set. Let me go see if I can become, volunteer at the Humane Society.
Right,
No, 10 points not set.
Right.
You can always use more, because sometimes it must feel like, and I'm putting myself in y'all's shoes, so I can't say it feels like it to me, but a little bit. Is that, what's that fable? The little boy in the dike puts his thumb in the dike.
Right.
I think there's 20 of you or so, and I like to say us now. I like to think
yes.
there's 21 of us maybe.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's 21 thumbs.
Yes.
In the dike.
Right.
The dike it's a lot bigger than that. We could use more thumbs.
Right.
There's your motto. We need more thumbs.
That's true. That's true. Any other observations, while we have you here, from your experience in being out there, or something in your article that we didn't touch on?
The camaraderie. And I call this the tender moments.
Okay.
There are so many, because I went out there expecting to see The Wire.
Right.
And by the way, Mario looks like Omar.
Yeah, he does.
I mean, he does.
Yeah, he does.
I mean, he looks like Omar.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
does.
don't tell me I'm saying you look like somebody else. You look. No, he looks like Omar.
Yeah.
And I took a picture of Mario, put it on Twitter, and said, "Who does he look like?"
Yeah.
And I got like 50 people. Omar.
Okay.
Oh, indeed.
Yeah.
Anyway, the tender moments that happen between folks that come up and recognize you, but also me or Mario or Stephanie. And because I expected, again, to see The Wire. I thought I'd see the Wild Wild West. I'm going to see gunfights. I'm going to see all this stuff. And you see things that are very disturbing. But then there's so many people that are just there to get their gas, or they're walking into their home down the street,
right.
or they're homeless,
right.
But they have their faculties, and they're talking to you. Like, I've gotten to know. I know I could list 10 names of people I know right now that when I see them, I get a hug and a handshake from 10 different people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
wow.
already.
Wow.
Because they're the same people. It's a living organism, but they're the same folks that come around. And those are, as I described in the story, they're tender moments. And those tender moments, it's not almost like, I used to play golf, okay?
Okay.
Look at the guy coming in and played golf. But I played golf, I quit because I hate it. But I used to play golf, and it's that one one great shot you hit, or in basketball, that one three-pointer you hit, whatever.
Right.
That keeps you coming back the next day. It's those tender moments that you see and you experience, and you think, I'm coming back because I need that. I need that.
Wow.
I would urge people, you get more than you give.
Wow.
Oh, you get more than you give.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing today, and thank you so much for the article and joining me today on Real Talk. And now he's just one of us now. Yeah, just one of us.
Okay, real quick, I want to tell you.
Okay.
So Mario sent me a text message, and it had a big emoji of somebody crying, and I said, "Oh no, what's wrong?" I thought he was going to tell me bad news.
Right.
And he said, I guess you know this. He said, Reverend says you're part of the group now, or you've made it, or something.
Yeah.
And I thought you do any business for long enough, you win some awards, you get some whatevers.
Yeah.
That's one of the greatest things I've ever read.
Amen.
I mean, I've never read something like that. Really, like, okay, wow.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure why I said that, but I'll be back.
Amen.
I'll be back.
Amen. I'm Reverend Charles Harrison, and this has been Real Talk. Join us next time as we bring you more Real Talk about the real issues that affect our community here in Indianapolis and across the country. Be sure to follow and subscribe to this podcast and share it on Facebook and Twitter. Gregg, thank you so much for joining me today.
Reverend.
And, yes.
Thanks for having me.
Hope to bring you back here again.
I'll be back. You have me, I'll be back, especially if you serve food.
All right, then. All right. Thank you. And thank you again for joining Real Talk today. Have a blessed and awesome day.
This is Real Talk with Reverend Charles Harrison.
Be sure to like and subscribe to this podcast.
And be sure to check out other great podcasts on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
Online now at allindianapodcast.com.